of Brighton and Hove Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And on behalf of BHPSC, I'd like to welcome you all to this 5th Brighton-Palestine Connect event in our series, which is focusing on women's entrepreneurship in Palestine. We've got really a fantastic lineup of inspiring speakers, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to hearing from them. I'm not going to detain you long, because I'm going to hand over to our chair tonight, Doaa Althalathini, and I'll introduce Doaa in a moment. Just a couple of practical announcements. One is to remind you that we will be recording tonight's event. If for some reason you don't want to be part of that recording, you'll have to mute your cameras. And in any case, we'd be grateful if you would mute your microphones unless you are called on to speak. So there's no feedback or interference on the chat. If you'd like to put a question to one or more members of the panel, you're very welcome to do so. Please do that in the chat and identify your question with a capital Q so that we can spot it easily in the chat, and we will then put that to members of the panel towards the end. And just one final reminder, and that is that we always conduct our meetings, whether they are virtual or real, in for Brighton and Hove Palestine Solidarity Campaign, in a respectful manner, and we will expect the same tonight. And anyone who doesn't comply with that perfectly reasonable request will be removed from the meeting. But let's proceed. Let's proceed. And I'm going to hand over to Doaa, who will be chairing tonight's event. Doaa holds a BSc from the Islamic University of Gaza, an MSc from Durham University, and an MSc from Imperial College Business School. She was a researcher on the Small Enterprise Center volunteer in, sorry, I've missed a line here, the Small Enterprise Center Association, which is an Oxfam project on economic recovery in Gaza, and worked as a volunteer in the Budget and Treasury Division of UNRWA, again in Gaza. She currently works in the UK as an investment banking analyst, and we're delighted to welcome Doaa, who will be, I'm handing over to now, who will introduce our 3 speakers. Doaa, welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thanks for the introduction. I'm sure you will have a good evening with us today and with our 3 amazing speakers. I'll start with introducing Doaa. Doaa holds a PhD in business and management and is a lecturer in business and enterprise at Oxford Brookes University. Her research focuses on entrepreneurship, resilience, and women empowerment in conflict zones, including Palestine. Doaa applies knowledge and experience to address important social challenges, contributing to building sustainable livelihoods and promoting women entrepreneurship in conflict-ridden states. Her most recent publication examines the impact of Islam upon women's entrepreneurship in conflict zones and the extent to which women entrepreneurship is an influential catalyst for liberalizing traditionally conservative gender norms. Next, we will have also Majd Mashharawi. She is a resident in Gaza and she's a civil engineer. She witnessed, obviously, by living in Gaza, the acute need for construction materials essential to rebuilding damaged buildings and infrastructure. She founded GreenCake in 2015, which is a company that creates environmentally friendly bricks from ash and rubble. In 2017, she developed SunBox, which is an affordable solar system that produces energy to alleviate the effects of the energy crisis in Gaza. SunBox provides electricity to hundreds of people In 2018, SunBox won the MIT Pan-Arab competition, competing with 6,000 entries. Her TED Talk, How I'm Making Bricks Out of Ashes and Rubble in Gaza, has received nearly 1.3 million views so far. And last September, Majd and SunBox were awarded the Muhammad Ali Humanitarian Award. Our third speaker will be Salma Shawa. She is fascinated with the intricacy of Palestinian embroidery with its various patterns, vibrant colors, and different cross-stitch techniques, which led her to create Anat International, which is a slow fashion sweetwear brand and community originating in Gaza. Her company transcends boundaries and breaks norms, and the garments she uses are designed to be worn by all genders and are cut, sewn, and hand embroidered by both women and men. When she researched embroidery, Salma learned that male Palestinian political prisoners picked up the art of embroidery during their time in Israeli prisons. The prisoners would send the gifts they created to their loved ones. Unfortunately, this habit of crafts making has declined in the past years because Israel confiscates materials like thread and needles that the prisoners use. Now we will hand over to Doaa to tell us about her story.
Thank you so much, Huda. Let me first share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for inviting me today to talk about my research in women entrepreneurship in Palestine, and thanks for everyone who joined us today. So first of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about myself. So how I ended up here. So in my undergraduate, I did a BSc in electrical engineering at the Islamic University of Gaza. So I was born in Gaza and I grew up in Gaza. In my graduation project, my group and I decided to do a smart greenhouse. So we thought that Gaza relies heavily on agriculture, and we thought of making an automated greenhouse to enhance productivity. So we made a prototype of an automated greenhouse for irrigation and fertilization, and we bought sensors from the US and other materials. So it was successful as a prototype, and it was almost a new idea in Gaza, which wasn't implemented before at that time, around 2008. However, instead of taking this innovative idea further, we graduated and we forgot about it, and we just started looking for jobs, which was our preference. And this is actually one of the many challenges to promote entrepreneurship in Palestine. There is still limited social legitimacy for entrepreneurship as a career, and even among educated people and among people or women in particular. So unsurprisingly, I didn't find a job in my field, electrical engineering. But I had the opportunity to work with different local and international NGOs in Gaza, and programs aimed to reduce poverty and empower women through entrepreneurship. So we provided these women, especially marginalized and poor women, with financial grants or microloans, and we provided them with managerial support in order to start up or grow their businesses. And we followed up with them for a few months. So throughout my observation and the following up, I was inspired by the success stories of these women. And here I don't mean the success that they had high revenues or they grow quickly, but despite the fact that they lacked the skills, the experiences, the education, they were able to survive their business. They were able to secure income to their families. And the women themselves, they felt more financially independent and they had more self-esteem. And also we observed that some of the men, they changed their perception or attitudes toward their women work and mobility. And because of this work experience, I decided to explore this topic further. So I did my master at Sussex University, then my PhD at Plymouth University. Then I started working as a lecturer in business and enterprise at Oxford Brookes University, where I still research entrepreneurship in conflict context, and particularly in Palestine. And generally, when we talk about conflict context and entrepreneurship, it's important to focus on these areas. If we look at this map, the global conflict, we can see that the world is witnessing a decline in peace and security, which actually produced a massive humanitarian crisis. And particularly the Middle East and North Africa region, they are the worst, the world's least peaceful region for the 5th consecutive year. However, most of the scholar or the research is conducted now on developed economics or safer environment. So they come up with these programs and interventions which might not be applicable for conflict contexts such as Palestine. So in conflict context, you might think that entrepreneurial activities decrease in this environment. However, what has been found that they actually do increase, because people, when they lack job opportunities, they start a business out of necessity. And especially that the government in this context, they are not able to provide for the needs of their citizens. And most importantly, the women, usually women in war countries, they start business out of necessity. So when the man is detained or killed or lost his job or migrated to look for a job, then this is the role of the woman to start a business and secure income to her family. So in my research, I interviewed a few women in Palestine who started and were running a business. So when I asked them about their motivation to start a business, actually there were interrelated motivation and not only one factor for the women to start their business. So as we can see, many of the women had economic prosperity and independence as main motivation. So they needed income for their families, but also some, they have worked and they faced issues such as the routine job. Other women, they wanted just to be independent. They don't like the regular job or the normal job. Other women, they started to have business because they wanted to balance their family life with their professional life. Few women just, as you can see, there is like a mix of bull and bush factors, as we say usually. So due to the lack of job opportunities, for example, some women, they utilized their special interest to start a business in an area that they like or they have experience on doing it, like, for example, embroidery, cooking, accessories. Also, some women, they started as they wanted to empower other women in this patriarchal context, or to support other women who experience difficult economic situation in order for them to support their families as well. So what kind of business these women have? So as you can see, the businesses, they varied from traditional ones such as embroidery or crochet to masculine businesses such as fishing and carpentry. Other businesses included digital marketing, grocery production, and we have Bisan here who will be talking about her entrepreneurial journey later, and aluminum accessories. So as you can see, there is like different businesses that the women perform. So what challenges these women face while operating their businesses in Palestine? So unsurprisingly, lack of government support. So the government doesn't provide tax incentives. There is limited support with finance or grants. Also, access to finance from banks or other microfinancial institutions was not also easy because of the conditions which require like sponsorship and high interest rate. And actually, most of the participants, they preferred Islamic loans, which are not interest loans. However, most of my participants, or the women that I interviewed, preferred not to apply for loans because of the difficult conditions and because of insecurity. So the situation in Palestine, it's volatile. So for example, in Gaza, one of the women mentioned, you can invest all of your savings and money in your business, and suddenly your business is destroyed by the ongoing attacks on Gaza. And we just recently experienced one of these attacks. In the West Bank, the Israeli soldiers can come at any time and close your business without having the protection of the Palestinian government. Also, insecurity can lead to restrictions on women movement more than men. So some of the women, they mentioned that other women, they lost opportunities to take part in competition, which can lead like to enhance their skills and start a business, secure finance, because they had to travel to other cities in the West Bank where there are several checkpoints and the situation can turn upside down at any time. Another serious problem is the underdeveloped infrastructure in Palestine. So for example, the lack of electricity in Gaza, where like some businesses, they rely mainly on electricity. Also, the closed borders affect the import and export and the availability of certain raw materials. Also, the online payment, it's still not common in Palestine and it's not very much supported, such as, for example, PayPal. And people, Palestinian people, they still feel hesitant to use online payment. Also, there is like more like encouragement to use online payment recently. And also some customers abroad, they might feel afraid of accountability. So they feel like hesitant to transfer also money to countries such as Palestine with political instability. And of course, this impact negatively on the marketing efforts of these women. Also finding the appropriate information sources and the experts, as we don't have like accurate databases for entrepreneurship or other useful sources. Also, the women still lack the knowledge and the skills, so they had to rely on their families or on themselves to self-learn through the internet to compensate for that. As I mentioned before, lack of social legitimacy as well, it's a serious problem. So there is a cultural preference still for regular employment rather than entrepreneurship. So many of the women I interviewed, they discussed discouraging family and discouraging society to start a business, not only because they are women, but there is historical like roots. There are historical roots for that, because the government was the main provider of jobs in Palestine, but currently the government is not able to accommodate the increasing number of graduates. Also, the political situation and insecurity play a role in preferring to have a stable job, as it's considered as a safety valve, like in case they lost the business or in case that there was no sufficient income from the business. So the women have to persist in that case and have to succeed in order to prove themselves. And this was more of an issue for the women than the men, because entrepreneurship is still considered as a masculine field. So for example, like one of the women, she started carpentry in Gaza. So she said, when I started, the society perception was tough. They were making laugh of me and my abilities. A woman wants to do carpentry, looks, she thinks she's a man, hold machines and work. So she wanted to challenge herself and she wanted to challenge the tradition and also to challenge men in particular. So how these women deal with these challenges? First of all, family support is important for any woman, regardless of the context, but it can be more important for women in patriarchal conflict context. So many women, they benefit from the family financial and managerial support, in addition to their support to engage in activities to start and run businesses. For women who didn't have this family support, they had to persist and they had to engage in ongoing dialogue. And as I said before, until you prove your legitimacy as a woman entrepreneur. So in addition to dealing with difficulties with starting a business in a conflict zone, you have also like to keep this conflict with your family until you prove your legitimacy as a woman entrepreneur. Moreover, there are some strategies that some of the women adopted in order to navigate the weak environment. So for example, the informal business. Few of the women, they worked in the informal sector. They didn't register their business, and as they are more concerned about the political situation and they don't guarantee that they will have regular income to pay for the taxes, so they avoid paying taxes, especially that there are no government support or any incentives. And actually, these women, they justified that why they are doing that. So they don't consider it as illegal, as they mentioned that there's no support from the government. So why I should pay the government and why I should obey their regulations. Also, few of the women, they relied on informal export. So they used logistic companies such as DHL, which is expensive, in order to send the items to customer abroad, or they use suitcases when they travel, or they rely on their friends or relatives abroad, the diaspora, to sell their products. Also, the international community is important, interested to promote women entrepreneurship in Palestine or generally in conflict context. So many women, they benefited from financial and managerial support from NGOs, similar to my previous work. And mainly these were like supported by the women organization who were proactive in supporting or providing such services to women. So for example, one of my participants mentioned that the Businesswoman Forum, they brought her like designers to create new ideas and customize her products. And actually this helped her like to market her products in Europe. So another thing that the women relied heavily on technology. So as I said, they lack the knowledge, the experts. So they use the internet or the YouTube in order to self-learn and to enhance their knowledge. Also, the media coverage and social media, they also were important for the women to market and grow their businesses. So, for example, one of my participants, she said, after participating in the exhibition at the Women's Affairs Center, we had several interviews and reports by channels and news agencies. This had spread our work tremendously, and they saw that we produce high quality products. So people contacted us through Facebook and Instagram pages from Jordan, UAE, and America. We are trying now to open a line with Turkey. So media coverage, where women were interviewed by media such as Al Jazeera or BBC, has enhanced the visibility of these women inside Palestine and outside Palestine. Also, the media helped to market the products of the women and to change the perception of the women as these women are marginalized or just victims of the war. Also, social media helped the women to increase their customer base and access international market. And most importantly, the high quality products, because generally there is like a public perception that products produced in conflict countries might be like of a poor quality or a low quality. So the media contributes to mitigate this perception. But on the contrary, actually, some of the participants said that actually the people, they might be interested to buy product from them because these customers abroad, they want to support women businesses in Palestine. In Gaza, for example, because of the blockade, media was very helpful. Like one of my participants said that some customers, they were asking that we have a blockade and how it's possible they will receive their orders. So Al Jazeera did a report about our work yesterday. So when people watch a big channel that made a report about us, for sure they know we have a credibility. Thank God, since yesterday we are receiving more orders just because of this report. So media reports and highlighting these stories of women play a significant role in promoting women entrepreneurship in Palestine. And actually these women are agents of social change in Palestine, and they are creating impact in their society. So these women, they created jobs for other women and also for other men, and they were mainly employing women experiencing desperate poverty. They also challenging and transforming the gender norms in Palestine. So for example, one of the women who's working as a fisherwoman in Gaza, she mentioned that when people see me wearing fishermen clothes or installing a motor or driving a boat, they wonder. Some were talking badly about me, but with time, people got used to it and it became normal to them. Sometimes they choose me over other fishermen to support and encourage me. So as a final remarks, these women are examples of successful women entrepreneurs who are dealing with political, social, and economic challenges. So to ensure the support, continuous support of these women, we need to address the wider issues and not focus mainly on women themselves and just adding more women into business. So for example, we need to support the government-citizen relationship. So rather than creating and building like non-governmental, like parallel systems that minimize and undermine the role of the government in the long term, we need to invest in the capacity of the government, building capacity of the government and its transparency and its role in the development. We need also inclusive policy and support. And this is very important in patriarchal conflict societies, because men, they can be also like marginalized due to the destruction, due to the lack of resources and job opportunities. So support should target women and empower both of them, women and men, not only focusing on women alone. We need also to address the discriminatory gender norms and engage more strategically with men, and especially with men who are considered as resistors, and not just to leave men out of the equation. We need also to give more publicity for the success stories of these women, so they can be role or act as role models for other women who still lack the confidence to start. And also this helps to change the perception toward the women in business in war zones. We need also to promote the culture in entrepreneurship by starting educating this in schools, provide tailored training programs and mentoring. For example, I found that focusing on indigenous crafts such as embroidery can enhance the women's access to international markets, as there is demand for such products. Digital literacy is also important. Okay, women, they use social media, but we need to ensure that we need to teach them how to use them more effectively for marketing and fundraising. And overall, conflict can empower women and women can empower other women. And recently I published a policy brief and a paper on how women use their Islamic faith and values to start and run their business and challenge the patriarchal culture, similar to Islamic feminism. And here I'm not saying that the women, they consider themselves as Islamic feminists. And I will post the links in the chat if you are interested to read them. Thank you so much for listening. And now I will hand over to Bisan. Bisan was one of the entrepreneurs whom I interviewed in my research, and she will be sharing her inspiring entrepreneur journey. So over to you, Bisan. Thank you.
Thank you, Doaa. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to meeting you, and thank you for inviting me to this seminar. And I'm well to introducing myself. I'm Bisan from Palestine, specifically Hebron city in the West Bank, and I am graduated in 2015 from Agriculture College as agriculture engineer in plant production and protection department. And I had my master degree in horticulture science from Jordan University of Science and Technology. As well, I had a second master degree in innovation and entrepreneurship in Mediterranean area in agri-food sector from Siam Bari in Italy. And I established my project as an entrepreneur in 2012 when I began to study agriculture engineering. This was my first experience in building a business. I started with 1,000 transplant of roses. The idea is coming from that the West Bank is lacking any production of cut flower at all, and all of the flowers in the Palestinian market, even in Gaza or in West Bank, it's coming from Israel, and it's forbidden to to import and export any type of flower from or into Palestine. So it's been a risk because there is no source of transplant in Palestine, especially for roses. I just buy this transplant from Israel side, unfortunately, and they begin 1,000 with 1,000 transplant, and now I have about 14,000 transplants, and my production it's reach about 350,000 cut flowers, especially roses, around the year. And I'm totally cover just the Hebrew market in West Bank. I'm taking a risk to myself and to my family to begin this project, and in 2015 there is the first project that support the agriculture sector and the graduated uh, uh, youth, we can say, in the agriculture sector. And I'm taking a competition with around around 1 year, and win with a grant reached to $15,000. And then I improved my project. Then I followed to improve my skill in the entrepreneurship sector and innovation in the agriculture sector. And I'm currently working in Agribusiness Accelerator as a general manager, and working with many entrepreneurs in the entrepreneurship project, and supported many women and as well many of men and from youth, and especially in the agriculture sector. And like Doaa said about the situation in Palestine, about the entrepreneurs and the innovation and the women empowerment, there here many deficiency and lack of experience in the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Many of the NGOs and many of the accelerator incubator here in Palestine with other international partner working on to improving this ecosystem, but still there is faced many difficulties around the Israeli occupation, especially in the West Bank, because the transportation from one city to another city through a lot of checkpoints, it's very difficult, and import and export of input or the product of agriculture sector, it's very hard. So we face many of obstacles here, but still we are making a progress, or a good progress in this sector, especially the entrepreneur, because there is a big effort to change the culture among the undergraduate student in all sector, even in agriculture, in engineering sector, and as well business, administrative, and ICT, etc., to make change in the culture, that we can begin to look for the entrepreneurship, especially for women, to enter the work market, and to being involved more and more in the market, and to empower themselves, and to building their families, and etc. And I think we had some success story like me and other also women's and other young men's in the agriculture sector, because Palestine, its focus, or it's a country depending on agriculture. Okay, so the agriculture sector and the entrepreneurship in the agriculture sector is very important to begin with, and need a very small investment. But sometimes we had faced many problem belong to we lack to we lack to we lack the startups law that should be I sorry about the startup law, that we need to empower the startups and the entrepreneurship sector in Palestine, so we can motivate those entrepreneurs to go forward. But unfortunately, we didn't have this law. So if they registered as a company or a startup, there is many taxes and VAT open these startups. So this is also as obstacles in this sector. And finally, I want to thank you, or thank everybody here. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm open for any question.
Thank you so much, Bisan and Doaa. So far, I think there are no questions, but I just wanted to say that, Bisan, your story is so impressive, and it's just a very good example of the many impressive stories we hear from Palestine about women entrepreneurship. But I completely also agree with Doaa how challenging it to be a woman entrepreneur in Palestine, speaking from as someone who worked with women entrepreneurs for like a limited period, but I could see. I also echo Doaa's sentiments that it was also life transforming for many of them. So I would say keep up the spirit and to be a role model. Bisan, for other women. And now we will hand over to Salma to tell us more about her project and business, unless someone would like to ask something for Doaa or Bisan. I assume no questions so far. So over to you, Salma.
Hi everyone, my name is Salma, and I'm founder of Anat International. So I'll give a little background about myself first, and then I'll go into our story. I'm from Gaza, born and raised here. I'm actually visiting my parents here for the first time in 7 years, so it's good to be back home. I currently work and live in Boston. So I conduct my business primarily from Boston in terms of shipping. But all the production takes place in Gaza, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But I graduated with a bachelor's in political science, so my primary experience has always been in social science research and not too much business. So this is all very new to me, to be frank. We soft launched the company in January 2020, but we actually got started with shipping in October 2020. So it took us a while to ramp up the whole process and like do the right, take the necessary steps to import out of Gaza and be able to produce from there. And some background about the story of where the idea came from. So my mom is very interested in embroidery and just crafts. She's really good at it. So she does most of the design. And a few years ago, I gave my mom a denim jacket and I asked her to embroider on the back of it. And people really liked it, and they would ask me where I bought it from, and I would say my mom made it. It's just handmade. And so that's sort of where the idea stemmed from, of like creating modern clothing that also has like a traditional twist to it. And we decided to make all the garments genderless, so they're not only worn by people that identify as female or women, they could be worn by everyone. And we wanted to make it inclusive because we realized that in Gaza, obviously unemployment affects both men and women. It's not just a women's issue, it's men as well. And there are actually, like, you'd be surprised, there are men that help women with hand embroidery in their homes, but they don't go out and say it because it's perceived to be a very feminine thing to do. So the workshop that we worked with was telling us this story about this man that walked in with his wife, and people sort of like made fun of him for helping his wife with embroidery. So that's where the idea came from, where we wanted to involve men in the process as well. But we meet people where they're at. We're not, the majority of people that work on our garments and do the handmade embroidery are women, but we're opening it up for everyone, and we're very clear about that. So if men wanted to join in and and create garments, then they're totally welcome. And we've had a lot of success marketing the product to all genders, and a lot of our customers are actually males, and they enjoy wearing the garments. So it's really nice to see that embroidery can also be for different genders, different people, very inclusive. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the meaning behind the word Anat. It's actually a Canaanite name. The Canaanites used to believe in mythology, and Anat was a major goddess during the time of Canaan. So they're the Palestinian ancestors, and she was the goddess of fertility and sexuality. And because the brand focuses on genderless embroidery and unisex clothing, we found that this name was very fitting, and we decided to set the foundation of the brand in Canaan. So use some of the old historical mythology of Canaan and bring it to the modern world and tell people about it, because oftentimes when we say mythology, our mind goes to Greek mythology or to the West, but in reality, Sumeria, which is modern day Iraq, was where mythology really started, and it has roots in the Middle East. So it's cool to educate people about that, and I find it really fun and interesting to read about mythology, and it's nice to see that it actually did take place in our region. So that's why we decided to call it Anat. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the process. So it's a two-step process. We make the actual plain denim jackets in a factory in Gaza. And after the jackets are produced, we give them to an embroidery workshop that we work with. And the person that runs the workshop distributes to different families and different people that want to work on embroidering the garments. So that's really our process. It's two steps, and it just changes with demand. Like if we have a lot of orders for like a given week or a month, then we distribute to more people. And if it's not as many orders, then we just give it to less people. And the person we work with in the workshop decides on that and finds people for us. But in terms of shipping, that's the most challenging part. We ship from Gaza to the West Bank. And the way that we've been doing it is through the owner of the denim factory. So the owner actually ships out denim worldwide, and it's just like plain, simple denim that he ships, like could be pants, could be jackets, everything. And so we give the merchants our clothing, all embroidered, all ready, just made all in Gaza, and he takes it to the West Bank. And in the West Bank, I have a friend who takes the shipment to DHL, and then we ship it through DHL to my apartment in Boston. And then from the States, I distribute to customers worldwide. So this is like a small infographic that my friend Mariam, who's actually on this call, made. So thank you. But yeah, it's from Palestine to the States and then worldwide. And as you can see, there's a challenge with that, which is sometimes, or in a lot of times, we'll get customers that are purchasing, let's say from Bahrain, from the UAE, and it would be much cheaper and simpler to ship from Palestine to the UAE. But because that's difficult, we're having to do it from the States worldwide, because it's more accessible for me to package and ship in Boston than do it from the West Bank. And it's just more cost efficient that way. Otherwise, I would have to know a lot of contacts in the West Bank who would have to ship to customers, and I haven't established that connection yet. So we've had to do it through the US for those in those cases. But domestically, if it's someone from the US, then it's way simpler because I could just ship from Boston. And these are just some pictures of the garments. They're all handmade. The embroidery is handmade, as I said. And this is another item. And then there's this one as well. But I wanted to speak more about challenges that we face. there's a story that I always tell people, and it's about buttons and different fabrics that we use on the jackets. So when we made our first batch, which we started shipping in October 2020, we used one type of button, and then midway through production, we ran out of the buttons, and the factory couldn't find it anywhere in Gaza. He couldn't get it from abroad. There was just like, we ran out of the same buttons, so we had to use a different type. And that's a challenge that we also face with fabric, where we had one item in stock and the fabric on the sides that we used ran out, and we couldn't import any of that fabric to Gaza because everything is blockaded. And so I had to put it out of stock, even though we did have the jacket, we did have the embroidery, but it wasn't representing the photo because it didn't have that fabric on the side. So these are like some challenges with sourcing materials that we face, but we try to work around that by thinking, the way I like to think of it is that we're operating in a very imperfect space. So it's only fair that the product that we create is not 100% perfect, and sometimes because it's handmade, you'll find very subtle differences between a jacket that you'll buy and a jacket that your friend buys, and customers so far haven't had any issues with that. But it's almost like a rebellion on the culture of perfection that, especially in the West, people uphold, and that we've all been conditioned to think about. And if I'm operating in a space that's as imperfect as Gaza, then it only makes sense that my product is not always 100% right with the same buttons, the same fabric. And it's been really nice to see that customers are very understanding when we do run into issues, whether it's with the materials, whether it's with shipping and importing, exporting. People have been so patient, so understanding, because they know how difficult it is to produce from a place like Gaza. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is the importance of community to the work that we do. Obviously, as I said before, we try to create garments that are inclusive with our sizing. Our sizes run to 3XL, and if anyone wanted it to be custom made to a size bigger, they can contact us and we'll accommodate. It'll take time, but we make sure to like highlight that on the website, on our Instagram. We're always helping other people that reach out, asking how they can set up a business from Palestine. And I'm running this with my mother, but a lot of the things that I've been able to do have been through the help of my friends. A lot of them are here on this call. So it's really important to understand how necessary community is when you're building a brand, because otherwise it just becomes about the product. And I try to make it as more than just a product. And I hope that you could see that through our website and our Instagram, with all the work that we do. And one final reflection that I have is about like the intersection between liberation and fashion, and really just capitalism as a structure. I always want to remind people that the work that I do and the business that we set up should not be confused as just liberation, right? Like, I like to think of our brand as a conduit to liberation, but not liberation itself, because you use the product and you use the garment to send a message and spread awareness, but you must combine fashion and business and entrepreneurship with actual political pressure, with activism, with protesting, with resistance. And that's really how you get to liberation. So I think a lot of times people might, and with good intentions, obviously, people might forget that it's not just about supporting a business and buying from that business that's going to get Palestine liberated and that's going to colonize our space, but it's also combining that effort with real activism and placing real pressure, and always having conversations about Palestine and doing what you can with what you have. And I always say this liberation work is going to include designers like myself and my mother. It's going to include business people. It's going to include chefs. It's going to include fighters on the ground. it's gonna include everyone, and we must all collectively and collaboratively work on it. And it shouldn't be just a business's job. It shouldn't just be a resistance fighter's job. It's all of us, and we should always couple this effort of supporting businesses with real collective effort, both on the ground, abroad, wherever you might be. So that's just a reminder that I always like to put out there, because I would hate for our business to be mistaken as, you know, we're not saying, oh, this is like liberating Palestine, right? No, it's showing the world a different face of Palestine and shedding light on our struggle. And I truly believe that, you know, we've been able to do that on Instagram, where, you know, once everything started to happen in Sheikh Jarrah, I immediately overhauled our whole Instagram, and it just became about activism. I stopped advertising. I didn't have product images, and I'm still trying to like find a happy medium where I could show the product, but also talk about Palestine every day, because that's what's most important, more important than the product. And I hope that message is getting through to people with our content. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salma. That has been very impressive. And which is that we should not be, as Palestinians, pigeonholed in specific areas, like we should all be journalists or politicians. I think Palestine, the way we resist should be in different ways, and not necessarily resistance in the way that we should be in all fields, in technology, in fashion, in finance, because when you spread awarenesses through different routes and different fields, that's how we prove our existence. And I think that's how we prove that we can exist in all fields and we can still be activists in our own way. So thank you so much. Waiting to see if anyone has any questions so far. They are asking about your Instagram page, if possible, and website.
Yeah, for sure. I can put it in the chat right now. I'm sorry, it was on the slide. I forgot. I'll put it.
Great, thank you so much, Salma.
Thank you.
No problem. Now we will head over to Majd Mashharawi. Majd will tell us about her project GreenCake and SunBox. So over to you, Majd.
Thank you so much, Huda. Just give me 1 second. I will share my screen. Yes, that's it. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me part of this seminar. I'm so glad to see there are so many participants, which means they are interested in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Today, I'm going to present first myself, who I am, where I came from, what I've been working on for the past 5 years, and what our next steps will be. How it all started. Before, when I was a kid, I was always aware of my society issues. I came from Gaza, Palestine, and I grew up in a family with a privilege of having access to proper education, proper healthcare, and also like access to so many other facilities. Like my parents taught me different languages. They introduced me to so many different people. But at the same time, a few blocks away from my house, there was a camp where people lack access to everything, to education, to health. Of course, they had like United Nations, UNRWA, United Nations Refugee and Working Agency, but it's not as supposed to be. So I was always curious of like why we are in different levels, like why those people live this life and why I live this life. And I did not imagine how the world would look like outside of Gaza. In the age of 13, I was watching a cartoon and I ran over my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad, look, there are planes in the cartoon. There are different countries, people who speak different languages." And he said, so what do you want? I was like, Dad, I want to travel. And he said, forget about this idea, because in that year, the blockade started in 2006. So what happened is I hold this dream inside my chest, and I grew up with the dream of traveling the world, spreading the word, spreading the message of people in Gaza and how my people live. And I knew that no one would listen to me unless I have something to show, unless I have a record. That's why in 2011, I graduated from secondary school and I joined engineering faculty. So I started my college in 2011, and this is a photo for me. I look much younger. We are getting older now. I'm 27 now, so I was like 18 years old, huge difference. So what happened is in 2015, the idea of my first company was born. This is a photo for me inside the lab, inside my college. In 2015, what happened is I've been through 3 wars: the 2008 war, 2012 war, and 2015 war. And what happened is so many families lost their houses. They were destroyed, like exactly the war that happened a few weeks ago in Gaza. And one of the families that they lost their houses was my family. So we lost our house, and we were not able to get access to rebuild it because Israel put more restriction on importing building materials into Gaza. So I was like, so what can I do with my education? I'm a civil engineer. I can do something. My dad was a researcher. He's also a civil engineer, and he's a businessman and a researcher. He said, listen, Majd, I've been working on this research of producing building blocks out of paper. Maybe you can develop the idea and make it into business. I took his research. We developed the first bricks. It was not as affordable as we thought, because in order to create an alternative for the existing building blocks that people have no access to, you need to create an affordable, sustainable, and constant source of building blocks. So we developed the idea until we reached to the idea of creating building blocks out of the ashes that come out of a burning process in Gaza and rubble of the demolished houses. In 2016, we established our factory in Gaza and we started our production officially, and we got our first grant from the college. I remember that year when I applied for this incubator Mubadirun, I went with a block to the committee and I was like, oh, I have this idea and I need someone to fund it. And they looked at me and they said, we won't fund it for 2 reasons. I was like, what are the reasons? They said, first, you are a woman, you will get married soon, you will forget about your idea. Second, it seems crazy to us. So both reasons, for obvious reasons, make sense. So I said, fine, well, I don't want you to give me the full grant you give to other men teams, but you can give me half of it. So when they announced the results, they said, there are 20 teams, and then on the shelf, there is a team who insisted to get this grant, and they will give them half of the grant, which was around like $2,500, which is basically nothing, but it was a good start for us on Gaza scale. After proving the concept, my team member, she got married and she just left the company, and he was like, see, your team member left the company. It means you will leave it soon once you get married. And I was like, even if I got married, it doesn't mean I'm going to give up on my dream. I kept going. So in 2016, finally my dream came true. I got the Japan Gaza Innovation Challenge Award, and part of the award was a sponsorship by UNRWA to get me a trip to Japan to refine my product. So this is a photo of me. I was also young in this photo, but older than the other one. So in 2016, I went to Japan, and it was my first time to live outside of Gaza. I was around like 23 years old, and I was so excited, like more than you can imagine. Although now I travel to plus 25 countries, but the first trip is always very special because it was the first time that I felt freedom, that I felt like a bird flying out of the cage. I felt like, oh, wow, people outside of Gaza, they have bridges. They have a lot of lights in their streets. It was a cultural shock for me going from Gaza directly to Japan. It's like moving someone from Earth to Mars. But for me, it taught me so many things. It made me realize who I am, what can I do, and how can I leverage the whole world to make them understand what I wanted to do in my country. In 2017, that was the second step in my life which is basically the biggest. It was bigger than the Japan trip when I won a fellowship grant program in the US. And this grant program was a 4-month program that teaches business skills in order to develop your company or come up with a new idea that they will finance it. I moved to the United States, and it was a big challenge for my parents coming from a men-dominant society and a society that does not respect women who wanted to enter the field of men, like bricks and energy and all of this. It was so hard to convince my dad. The one who helped me is my brother and my mom, who always stood by my side. In that year, in 2017, I remember when I went to exit Gaza. Of course, in order to leave Gaza, you have to apply for 4 different permits and coordination. So in order to get all of these done, the paperwork done, you need to work on it a couple of months in advance of your trip. So what happened is I applied and they rejected me first time, second time. I kept applying. I never gave up. And then I got my 4 permits. I remember in the day of leaving Gaza through Erez crossing, which is the border with Israel, my dad was like really sad and he was crying, was like, I never imagined I will send my 23 or my 24-year-old daughter alone to the United States, a place that I have no idea about, although I've been to, but I don't think it's a good idea. And I think so many people is going to criticize me. And I was like, Dad, did I do something shameful for you before? And he said, no. I was like, I will make you proud. So in 2017, the fellowship allowed me to start my second business, SunBox. And the reason why I joined this fellowship is not only to live in the States and learn new cultures, but also because I wanted to learn business. I came from engineering background and I knew I wouldn't establish a successful company unless I have the proper weapons for it, which is business skills. So they said, we will teach you business, we will give you grant, and we will allow you to raise investments and you come back home and then you start launching your company. And that's exactly what happened. I spent around like 4.5 months out. I went back to Gaza, I launched the company. Most of my friends called me the crazy girl. They said, people get one-time opportunity to leave Gaza and they never come back. You got it twice and you still come back. You have a problem in your mind. Can you excuse me for 1 second? Just a second, sorry. Yeah, so they said, I have a problem in my mind. So what happened is I launched SunBox in Gaza. And why did I launch it is, I remember in my first trip to Japan, I was really fascinated by how many lights they have in their streets, how many people have access to energy. While in my country, 2.1 million people are living under 3 to 6, sometimes 8 hours of electricity per day since 2006. And it's not stable, it's not constant. Sometimes it comes in the morning, sometimes it comes in the evening. It's really different, it's really difficult. And you cannot even plan for anything in your life. So I was like, so why not to launch a company providing access to renewable energy through different financing models? People need energy, they cannot afford paying for it. So what if we find a way to finance it and then people would have this access? This is our first solar installation that we've done. It was a very simple off-grid self-installable solar system. Of course, we progressed by time providing bigger solar systems, not only to households, but also different governmental and private institutions like educational institutions, hospitals, like clinics, desalination plants. This is one of our desalination plants. This is another one. We've also provided solar street lights to villages that have no access to energy during the night. So you can see a lot of sexual harassment for especially students, female students who go to school in the morning in the winter time, and it's really dark. So most of the families in these villages stop sending their girls to school because they're afraid they might be sexually harassed. So we also had this great campaign of providing a lot of villages in Gaza with solar street lights. We have also launched SunBox Academy, providing online and offline solar courses to university students, to school students, and also to international students outside Gaza. This is one of the courses. This is another one. This is the third one inside one of UNRWA schools. Of course, I have to pay it back. They sponsored my exit in the first time. And this is part of our team in Gaza. We are now employing 15 team members. Unfortunately, I'm the only female. We are working on hiring more females in the near future. what we've been doing is SunBox has been awarded different prestigious awards during our journey. The first one, we got it from His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Emirates Energy Award. We've been also awarded the Muhammad Ali Award for Confidence. This is in my life, it's one of my biggest accomplishments because I really love Muhammad Ali a lot. And also we got the MIT Enterprise Award, and we were the first Gazan team who got it ever. I've also gave a speech at TED Women in California in 2018. And what is also behind that? Like, if we wanted to focus more on how a female in Gaza can like establish company, how hard it is, it's not easy. Like, it has been now, this is my 5th year, and it has been a very, very challenging journey. I'm not saying my life becomes easier now. No, it doesn't. It becomes harder, but I become stronger. So if we look at some statistics, we can see that early marriage for girls in Gaza under 18 years reached 20%. And 15% of married women had sexual abuse by their husbands. And the rate of unemployment among young women in Gaza who are under 30 years old is reaching 92%, while education is really high comparing to men. So, as I mentioned, what made me move forward with my journey as a woman through all of these crazy numbers is that there are so many people who believed in me, who encouraged me, and who pushed me forward to keep moving. Of course, starting from my belief as a Muslim, I always have my role model as Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who has been through like a lot of crazy stuff. My stuff is nothing comparing to him. So it really, really gives me a lot of strength. Plus my family, my dad and my mom. My mom got married in the age of 17. She really studied hard. She finished her master's 2 years ago, and now she's applying for her PhD. So she brought the 6 of us while she's studying, and she's always the best student. And she was one of the few first female lawyers who worked in the religious court in Gaza, defending women who wanted to get divorced from their men and from their husbands, and they don't know their own rights. What is the impact we've created so far in Gaza? 10,000 people or even more now. These are all the statistics for 2020. More than 10,000 people have access to clean energy and to clean water in Gaza. We've provided energy to 35,000 people. We've created jobs in total of 65. Now we are opening an internship program, accepting female and male engineers to join our current project that is funded by the EU to provide more desalination plants for solar energy. We've been recognized on different media agencies, and I feel this is also a success because part of our mission is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is to deliver the message of Palestinians. We are not dependent, we are independent. We can be independent, but we have a lot of restrictions, starting the occupation, the blockade, the crazy economical situation, crazy social pressure on women, but we still can make it through all the odds. We've been recognized over the Independent, BBC, CNN, The Guardian, Reuters, TED, and other local media agencies. So in 2020, we moved from being SunBox company working in the West Bank and Gaza to be SunBox Group, entering our second market, Saudi Arabia. So we've launched our mother company in the UK, in London, and now we're a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia, and we did acquisition for the Palestinian company. The aim and the vision of our small company, the Palestinian company, has been increased, and now we work more international level, providing bigger solar systems to bigger facilities, with a vision of working in the privileged communities like the GCC, the Gulf area, starting in the Saudi market, and then reinvesting the profits in the unprivileged communities like the Palestinian market, hopefully refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Part of my work is also advocacy. So I do a lot of summits, I do a lot of events. We sponsor a lot of local events for entrepreneurs, startups in Gaza, and I'll also serve as a mentor for free for so many startups in Gaza. I help startups to scale up, register their companies overseas, connect them with accelerators, investors, and of course, on the top of that, I love to be like the big sisters for the new entrepreneurs in Gaza. This is a photo from Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Majd. That has been very impressive to listen to. And it's just really impressive story and just inspiring, I guess, for everyone. Now I'd like to see if anyone has questions for Majd or even for previous speakers or any comments.
This one from Ben.
Hi. Yeah, we're listening. What was your question, please? Oh, okay, there is one from Ben. Thank you. Okay, I'll read it out. I haven't seen it. Sorry, Ben. We know that Gaza is subject to intolerable siege and assault all the time, but I would be interested to know how the recent brutal and intensive assault has impacted your activities. I think this could be directed to Majd as she's in Gaza now, but also feel free. I mean, I have family in Gaza. Doaa, everyone has families in Gaza, can probably tell us as well, or tell us more about the impact of the business. Maybe Majd, would you like to go first or something?
Unfortunately, Huda, I'm in Saudi now. I left Gaza a couple of months ago and I was not able to come back because Air's border is closed. So I would love to answer, but I don't think I'm the best. Maybe, do we have another Gazan who's inside Gaza right now?
Okay, Selma is. I'm sorry, Selma.
No,
Okay.
you're good.
Who's that? Yeah, you said that you are with your family now. So Selma, please let us know. Were you there during the last assault?
No, I wasn't. I came right after because I don't know. I was like super anxious. Watching it from abroad. I think it's worse when you watch it from overseas. Like I was wishing that I'm there. But yeah, to answer that question, Ben, I think so, like during normal times, or not normal, just times where there's no assaults, it's super difficult with shipping and producing. And now it's made even worse because the checkpoints are closed between us and the West Bank. So I'm unable to ship my batch. It's just like half of it is waiting at home to be shipped. So customers have to wait. So it's something that I've had to constantly communicate with people, especially when they email me asking when their jacket would be delivered. So that's one part of it. And then the other part is about the materials. So I went to the factory yesterday just to see when we'd be able to get another batch of plain denim so we can embroider some more. And he told me that he doesn't have any more fabric. So he's been waiting for the checkpoint between us and Israel to open. And he was hoping that it would open last week, but it's still closed. So he's been unable to get materials to start producing. So that's a challenge that we're facing right now. It's making it hard to produce and hard to bring products to the customers as soon as we can. I'm reading Jane's question.
There is another question. Thank you so much, Selma. There's another question. Which is an interesting question. She's asking, why are you letting them join in making the garments?
Yeah.
And, she's asking if this is due to the impact of the American culture on the need to be gender neutral generally. So what would be an answer for that if you have any?
Yeah, of course. So I spoke a little bit about that with why we decided to make it genderless, both with who wears it and then who makes it. So in terms of why we want men to participate, it's because there are men who know how to do it, but they do it in secret because it's perceived as feminine and not a masculine thing. So that's one part. The second part is that with embroidery, it's been portrayed by a lot of businesses and a lot of businesses that try to steal the art, actually, not just businesses that operate within Palestine. Embroidery has been appropriated, and to bring customers in, there's been businesses that circulate what I would call, personally, that's my personal opinion, exploitative images of women that are shown to be, you know, poor, low income from the developing world, sewing and stitching. So that's a stereotypical view of what a woman is, what an Arab woman is, what a Palestinian woman is. And we want to debunk that with our brand. And if you look at our website, we don't have any of these exploitative type of images. I shy away from using the slogan empowering women, because when I say empowering women, there's a power dynamic, and I'm assuming that I'm the powerful one and that there's someone weak that I'm with my power giving them that. With my business, that's income straight to the families that work. So we don't look at it as a gendered practice, because if we do look at it like that, then what we're doing is we're locking women into this fear of being at home and sticking to traditional roles. And I don't want to reproduce that in our society. And this is my attempt at trying to shift that and say that, no, a woman can do all these things. A woman can choose to stay at home. A woman can be this and that. It doesn't have to be that only women get to do handcrafts, and it inspires men. And then to that question about American influence on gender, well, actually, the way I view it, the reason why I laid the foundation of the brand in Canaan with the name Anat is because the Canaanites did not have a concept of gender. That's the concept of gender that we have in the modern day is actually Western, and it's colonial. So actually, to say that something has gender and to focus a lot on it is an American thing. And it is, and for me to say gender neutral and genderless is a very Palestinian and a very Canaanite and a very indigenous thing. And you see that with Native Americans, with the Aboriginals in Australia, with a lot of ethnic groups and indigenous peoples, which sadly a lot of them have been wiped out. They did not uphold the idea of gender. Actually, in Hinduism and with a lot of people that live in India in the past, prior to British colonization, they used to believe in a third gender. So their societies had 3 genders, not just the 2 that we think of. So actually, I would not say it's an American influence. I would say it's a very indigenous, very Palestinian thing that I'm trying to circulate, and it's a practice of decolonialism and decolonizing what gender is.
Thank you so much, Salma. I agree with you as well. I think the more the gender divide we had increasingly last years has been increasing due to colonization more. And maybe another view also on allowing men to join and participate in your work and working in the garments is also the high unemployment rate highlighted earlier, which can be if we have a man who's very talented and they just can't find a right opportunity, I think they should be given an opportunity regardless of whether this is more of a feminist thing. So
yeah, what I always
how it is in Gaza as well in terms of unemployment, and it's just unbelievable. Yes, so it's also a good contribute.
Yeah, I just to add, like the example I give and the example I think about often is why is it that we've made it the norm for women to hold a needle and a thread? Like, why is that the okay image while the man works in a factory? I think that's very that's also part of what I'm trying to do, is like to say, no, women aren't born with a needle and a thread, just like they're not born cooking and stirring the pot. And men aren't born for these masculine roles in the factory that we often think about when we think of a working class man. So that's also part of it.
Thank you so much, Salma. That's very helpful to listen to. Now, I think we have more questions. Just gonna scroll through them. we also, yes. So we are asked about if the speakers generally want to extend their expertise and experience to the world. So I think you all do, but I'm not sure what exactly the question is. Do you mean that if they want to extend their experience abroad or import their products more? I think Salma is already doing that, and Majd is already traveling the world. And yeah, so but yeah, if you have answers or if you would like to elaborate on your question, that would be good.
As you mentioned, maybe he or she meant that she wants also us to speak up to different seminars or different sessions. Maybe
Yeah.
we'd love to, like, definitely.
I think, yeah, that would be something you should consider, definitely, and yeah, you should be open to. I'm sure you are.
That's why we have such seminars, to talk about our experiences, about success stories of women who are struggling but are having successful businesses in countries like Palestine. If I want to talk about my research, so as I said recently, I published a policy paper. Okay, I published like academic journals, or sorry, academic papers, but people who are like producing policies or like designing programs or interventions to be implemented in Palestine, they will not be interested to read my academic papers. So what I did, that I had like a summary of my papers, academic papers, and I had 4 pages of policy papers where I told them that those are the practical recommendations that you need to consider when you design. So I sent this policy paper to NGOs, UN organizations 2 months ago, and I got positive feedback from them that they will take them into consideration. In a few months, actually, I will send them another email to see if they adopted any of my recommendations. And this is also important because this is how I can make impact from my research. And also I'm planning like to do like a seminar where I invite some of my the women that I interviewed. And by the way, I conducted my research in Palestine, Afghanistan, and Iraq. So my focus was on these 3 countries, not only on Palestine. So I'm aiming maybe this summer or early September, like to have like a seminar where I invite some of these successful women entrepreneurs from the 3 countries so they can share their experiences. Especially that we still, and I faced this personally when I moved to the UK, we still have this perception about women in more countries, that they are not educated, they are like oppressed, they are passive. So it's good to try like to promote that image that we have women who are successful, who resist, who persist, and who are aiming to contribute to social change and to promote peace, either in Palestine or any country which witnessed political instability.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Doaa, for your answer. It does make us more informed, definitely, and we wish you all luck with your next research adventures and seminars. Now I think we already reached the time to close this session, and we definitely just want to say that I personally enjoyed listening to all your stories, and I'm sure everyone else enjoyed this session as well. I think we have got all the questions now and answered them. I think it's the right time to close it now. Thank you so much for attending, and hopefully see you in other events.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
I'll just finish off. If I can be the speaker, let me just.
Yeah, sorry, Ben. Yeah, it's you know.
Thank you. Right. Well, it only falls to me to express, I think, on behalf of all of us, thanks to Hoda for your expert chairing and to our fantastic speakers. I mean, I've just been so inspired and impressed by the stories and by the linkages between your business activities and the wider political and global context. It's just been extraordinary, and many thanks. And we have a bit of a tradition in Brighton of asking everyone to unmute so that we can give you all this round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for attending. When and if we have a further Brighton-Palestine Connect event, please look out for it. But in the meantime, thanks again to Hoda and our speakers, and thanks for attending. And see you all again soon.
Thanks to you, Ben, as well. Thanks.
Bye-bye.